To be clear, I'm defining odd meter as a time signature not typically used in popular Western music. Most of today's popular music features 3-beat or 4-beat long measures, but today we're going to be checking out some of the more complex stuff like 5s and 13s.
Clock is a 1993 platformer for the SNES featuring a brightly colored, fist-flinging protagonist and one of the best Fallen Brothers soundtracks of all time. Tim and Jeff Fallen are a pair of highly esteemed game composers known for their technical mastery of old-school sound chips and prog rock-style compositions. For some reason, they didn't hold back when composing tunes for Clock and produced an entire album's worth of incredible soundscapes and insane compositions. My personal favorite of these is the theme titled Beach, which features this 7/8 groove. To count this groove, we can separate it into two sections. The first 4/8 notes are comprised of 2 quarter notes, and the next 3/8 notes are comprised of 2 dotted eighths. This next example is the menu screen theme from a Dodonpachi game, and we can use it to examine the difference between 7/4 and 7/8. Just to clarify, the bottom number refers to what subdivision our unit is, in this case, quarter notes. The top number refers to how many of those we actually count, in this case, 7. As a result, this groove is in 7/4, or 7 quarter notes.
Generally, in Western pop music, we think of quarter notes as the beat or the pulse of our song.
Get up off of that thing and dance to you better.
Accordingly, eighth notes are the next subdivision down, and these feel more like smaller building blocks within those quarter notes.
Rounding out the 7 section, we have this other shoot 'em up called Thunder Force from the 16-bit era. This time we're going to be constructing a hybrid meter out of 3 measures of 7 and a measure of 6. Technically, you could call this many things. You could argue that adding up all the beats, this groove is in something like 27/4. However, I just don't find this to be useful. I'd argue that the point of using time signatures is to make it easier to organize all the beats in a way that we recognize. From my perspective, it's much more practical to call this 3 7s and a 6. Yeah, so this is an example I have briefly discussed before, but it's worth bringing up after the previous context. We can use groups of 2s and 3s to make this 11/8 much easier to count. This is yet another strangely complex odd meter, which becomes a lot easier to count when you break it down into smaller pieces. For me, it's easiest to break this 13 up into a measure of 6/8 notes and then a measure of 7/8 notes. So the reason I left that running so long is because I am enamored with the compositions of Manabu Namiki.
He has had a prolific career doing soundtracks for this style of shoot-'em-up game, and many of them feature odd meters and other musically nerdy and intense exploits, and I intend on covering many more of them in future videos. Regarding this particular tune, this is a solid example of how sometimes I choose to group things into a bigger subdivision to make it easier to keep track of. When you add up all the quarter notes here, there are 10 of them before the groove loops back. If I were performing this, I'd most likely choose to count it as 5-2, I guess, as in counting 5 half notes. Explaining this groove to a group of performing musicians, I would say that instead of counting 10, they could just count a big 5. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this particular swath of odd meter grooves. I already have discovered a ridiculous amount more of them, and I would love to make another episode soon. As a matter of fact, I've come to really enjoy making videos for the Biblets channel, and in order to start making this more of a regular thing, I have started a Patreon. I would love to produce more content and have a more consistent posting schedule, and in order to do those things, I need to streamline my video making process by making a few investments in gear and software. Absolutely any amount helps, even donating $1 a month to become a jazz bot. You'll have access to my Patreon exclusive videos, as well as the ability to vote on my upcoming video topics. If you're interested in hopping aboard, feel free to click the Patreon link in the description. Either way, have a dope week.